This is the story of Howard Beale, so spoiler alert. How does a reporter get killed live on the air? The film network will tell you why. It's the same reason why a reality TV asshole got reelected. Drama sells. Sex sells. If it bleeds, it leads. The public needs someone to articulate their rage, and rage equals ratings. Politics is professional wrestling. Podcasters, pornographers, and political pundits, they're all the same. UFC, WWE, CNN, and all the alphabet soup channels, whether it's legacy media or not. It's how Alex Jones wages InfoWar. It's Piers Morgan or Bill O'Reilly, or go back to fucking Wally George or Morton Downey Jr. or Joe Pine or Rush Limbaugh, Donald Trump. Angry men of the airwaves, the zeitgeist. It's all ratings. It's all streams and downloads. It's all spin. It's all optics. It's Chomsky's manufacturing consent. It's corporate political platforming and astroturfing posing as grassroots countercultural vibes. It's Howard Beale. Leslie asked me, jokingly, is this the villain origin story of Fox News? Yes, it isn't, but it is. TV or streaming is not the truth. And the revolution will be televised.
I don't remember when I first saw a network. I can't. Some movies just fade into your memory, and they become part of the fabric of the culture. I mean, I think there are certain films. A lot of Spielberg's work, to a degree. The Godfather, Apocalypse Now, those 1970s films that were part of the movie watching experience when I was a kid. Both going to the movies, but also that HBO period when HBO was buying up everything in order to fill the hours of programming needs. This is years before HBO original series. This is years before comedy specials. This was in its infancy when you were seeing the Blues Brothers 4 times a day. And there are certain films that may have been too heavy or too deep for a kid. But when that shit is being played all the time and you're seeing certain images, when you're seeing a man drenched with, you would later come to realize is rain, but could have been sweat, could have been just, this is playing on your box and you're seeing it and you're seeing him rant. And all you can hear is, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. This shit sticks with you. And it starts to build into your cinematic knowledge, your cinematic vocabulary. And you start to see what movies are capable of, even at a young age, before you understand the ins and outs, the intricacies, the tricks. You do have an understanding that movies have a deeper meaning and function in this world. Network is one of those films that I've been told over and over again is a comedy. Maybe it was a comedy. Maybe I laughed the first time I saw it, but watching it again last night, probably 10 or 12 years after having first seen it, nothing about it struck me as funny. I could see where there were jokes, and I could see where the intention was to mock in the same way Kubrick did 15, 20 years earlier with Dr. Strangelove. But it just wasn't there for me on this viewing. It was a movie that made me kind of sad. And it was a movie that made me, just watching it, depressed me a bit. And I like to think that I don't let shit get to me the way that this movie got to me. During the first Trump administration, I said, or the first Trump win, I tweeted out something or I Facebooked something that said, "Calm down, this too shall pass." I think I underestimated. Watching Network now and realizing damn near everything except watching somebody get shot on TV live has pretty much happened. And when you understand that, there's a level of hopelessness that overwhelms you, or at least it did me. I will say this, it's one of the greatest films ever made. It stands the test of time. It's taken on an entirely different meaning, or maybe it's fulfilled the meaning that it was originally intended to have. It was a troubling viewing, and I'm really interested in both your opinion on the film itself, but what it says about the culture. Mr. Chavez, that's my long-winded rant about this particular film. Let's get started.
Well, what it says about the culture is that the same thing that our podcast says about the culture, or not our podcast in terms of what we say on the podcast, but what the podcast there people go. Obviously, in order to hear me say that, you have to listen to the podcast. So the vast majority of humans don't know that I will ever have said this, because they don't know I exist. And they don't know that I exist, and they don't know that you exist, and they don't know that you, the listener, even exists. Is because you're not controversial enough.
Yeah.
Because hey, you want to be known, you want to get famous, you got to show your tits, you got to show your ass, metaphorically or physically. You want to get famous. How do Americans get famous? They write manifestos, if they can write, and then they do what they fucking do. I told you say that Network isn't really funny. You can see where there's a joke in there, but it's kind of like it's fucking sad.
It's not funny today.
I mean, sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not funny on November 5th, you know?
No. Or January 6th.
Or January 6th. You got that goddamn right. It's not funny, but who has the last laugh, right? Yeah. It was during the Olympics, and we were at a friend's house, and I don't know if I had already said it or I just said it on the spot. I don't remember, but and I don't know what sparked it, but it was it was fucked up, but that's my dark humor, and my play on fucking these fucked up things that we start to associate with fucking racially, and fucking in a racist way we associate with cultures or whatever. And we were talking about teams losing or whatever, the Olympics, and I was like, oh yeah, like a Chinese team loses, they get executed. A Japanese team loses, they kill themselves. An American team loses, they go shoot up the mall.
Yeah.
You want to get famous? I'm not saying obviously do that, but all these fucking assholes who do that on some way are saying, I'm fucking mad as hell and I'm not going to take this anymore. And at least, hey, maybe I'll end up on the news. That's why these fuckers that go out on those sprees, a lot of times when people talk about them, they don't say their name, because they don't want to name them, because they don't want to even celebrate them, or, with quotes, celebrate them even in death. There was a reporter named Christine Chebek, a couple years before this film, or the film came out. She fucking shot herself. She was a newscaster, and she shot herself on air.
Okay.
She was like something along the lines of in keeping with I don't know what the letters were, but WKRX or whatever bullshit, right? Like keeping with WKRX's standard of showing the local blood and guts news. That's what she said.
So she was
Blood
making
and
a
guts
political
news.
statement. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, she was making all kinds of statements,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Local blood and guts news. You will, for the what is probably for the first time, will see a live suicide attempt on live TV or whatever she said, and bam, um, that's it. And so then fucking Howard Beale is like, I'm being fired. So I'm affected in 2 weeks. So on my last broadcast, I will kill myself live on air. Um, and that's what the story's about. That's what this fucking movie's about. A fucking reporter. This is the story of Howard Beale. He fucking gets fired. Effective in 2 weeks. He was one of these big names of TV when they still had big names. When it was like when I was a kid, it was like Sam Donaldson.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It was like those guys, Peter Jennings, guys from that you would remember them. Like Barbara Walters was at that point. She was doing the 2020 thing, and she was doing the interviews. She was interviewing Mike Tyson, who just had a publicity stunt fight with a YouTuber. She was interviewing Mike Tyson, talking about throwing fucking Robin Givens across the room type of shit. She was making Patrick Swayze cry or whatever, whoever it was. There was also fucking Geraldo Rivera fucking swinging on TV. But it was these night news guys. Peter Jennings, Sam Donaldson, those guys. The guys that were in the Cronkite tradition, in the Edward R. Murrow tradition. So Howard Beale was one of those guys. Like when reporters were like reporters and they were dignified, and it wasn't just editorial bullshit. It wasn't like Tucker Carlson nonsense, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was still what it was, but it was different. So he's gonna get fired because his ratings are fucking low. So he starts to lose it. He has this outburst. He gets cut. But now people are talking about it. So then they say, okay, we're gonna fucking look. Let's let him say his last thing or whatever. Like this as a way to get out of there. But in the background, there's corporate network maneuvering. And because of the corporate network maneuvering, the guy who oversees Beale's show was William Holden, not floating in a pool. He's like, fuck it. When he starts going off, Howard Beale on TV, he's like, fuck it, it's going to play. You guys want to do this? Let's do this. Guess what? It's a hit. So this crazy TV show maker chick, a shark, she does programming. She's like, no, we got something here. We're gonna milk this. They give him his own show, and he becomes a manufactured profit. Profit in both of those different ways that you can spell it, with both of those meanings. And it all lasts until it fucking doesn't. And once he peaks and once he falls, Hollywood, it's the sacrifice. They got a rival show or another show that it's about. You know, this is the Patty Hearst era. Patty Hearst was the heiress to fucking Rosebud.
You got to really go in depth because nobody knows who the fuck
Yeah, I
Paddy
know.
Hearst. And this is part of the conversation we were having before we got on the air, is that
Yeah,
nobody has any idea what any of this shit, the references are,
yeah, I know.
nobody would know who
Fucking Google
Angela
it.
Davis is. Nobody knows who Walter Cronkite is. None of that shit
They don't even
is.
know who Angela Bassett is, much less fucking Angela Davis. The fuck.
Yeah, what's love got to do with that shit? Let's please school these motherfuckers because they need to know.
I'm just gonna give the okay. This is the 1970s. That was a decade.
Mm-hmm.
It was a decade of great turmoil, much like the 60s, but more selfish. Civil rights had given way to black power. So you had like these black nationalist movements, a bunch of them, and all these revolutionary terrorist movements in the United States. One of the famous ones was called the Symbionese Liberation Army. They fucking kidnapped Patty Hearst. Patty Hearst is the heiress of Hearst. There's a Hearst Castle in Central California. Um, William Randolph Hearst was a fucking newspaper baron. Citizen Kane, based on that. Anyway, she's the heiress. She gets kidnapped. Comes out in footage of her fucking in a beret holding up some fucking ammo store or some whatever it was in South Central, which is now a church. She basically she got Stockholm syndrome where she joined the group that kidnapped her, and it was like this big news thing. So in the world of this film network, in the world of the background of the U.S. is fucking Watergate, because there was a president named Nixon who, before Trump, everyone thought he was like the worst and most disgraceful president, but he was classy as fuck by comparison.
Oh yeah,
because he wasn't a crook, so he said. Anyway, this shark from this programmer played by Faye Dunaway, Faye Dunaway was an actress. She comes in and she wants to create she's creating these other shows, and it's all shock shows. Talk shows and shock shows. And she has a show about some of these different groups, and the point of the show is it's like Cops. Cops used to be a show too. Cops was a show about people running from the police, and it used to open with that song "Bad Boys, Bad Boys, What You Gonna Do." I don't remember what the name of that reggae band is anymore. Doesn't matter. Anyway, so it was like this show called Cops, because everything that I'm comparing it to is something else that's fucking 30 years old.
but
So
it's important to note it came after Network.
it came after Network, yeah.
So that,
But it was like influenced by all this shit. But as a point of reference, it was like a reality type of show. But this show within the Network film would be footage of these groups doing terrorist attacks. So they had to collaborate with these groups. This is in the movie. A TV programmer is pitching an idea because she found footage. It's kind of like the film that we did it last year. We did it at the end of last year, and it was Nightcrawler, where this guy's fucking going out and filming crime scenes, and he's literally and metaphorically in bed with the TV programmer, the news programmer. Well, it's the same kind of thing. This woman is in charge of programming. So she pitches this idea, and then she gets in contact with these terrorist groups, and she's like, we'll pay you to give us footage of you doing terrorist attacks and bank robberies and shit like that. So is it the dog wagging the tail or the tail wagging the dog? So it's like, if you don't have a terrorist attack planned, but you need one for TV, do you do one so you can get it on TV so you can get this money and you can go back and forth with it? That's what happens. Ultimately, Howard Beale, he gets his own show. He's the mad prophet of television. He's talking all this shit to people every day. It starts off with him, I'm going to kill myself on there. And it goes into, I want you to get up now. I want you to get up. I want you to get mad. I want you to get up to go to your window. I want you to open your window and I want you to yell, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take this anymore. I want you to get up now. And he's fucking ranting. He's hyping America up. And people start doing it. People start in this film, they start going to their fucking windows because everyone's pissed off. What the character, Faye Dunaway's character, Diana Christensen, says is that people need someone to articulate their rage. That's what he does. He taps into that by accident. And in his mental breakdown, he starts to believe that he's touched by God somehow. And even if he doesn't totally agree with it, the idea of getting his own show now makes him agree with it and believe it. So he goes full on into it. Then he gets his own show, and then he starts talking shit to people. He starts saying that less than 3% of you people read books. Less than 15% of you read newspapers. Newspapers were a thing. It was a way you would get news before.
A long time ago, but
he
yes.
He says the only truth you know is what you get out of this tube. Televisions used to have a tube, and that's how it was part of the transmission. They weren't flat before. There was a thing called TV.
Yeah.
Before computers, before phones. Not YouTube. And he says right now there's an entire generation that never knew anything that didn't come out of this tube. This tube is the gospel, the ultimate revelation. This tube can make or break presidents. Then he starts talking about turn off the fucking TV. Because he's just loose. He's just letting loose. No script. He's unscripted and unfiltered. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, sounds familiar.
Well, the fucking TV. Then he starts talking about fucking we've sold our country to the Arabs and fucking and there's all these network deals happening within the network that this show belongs to. So then the head of the network is like, what the fuck? I don't like this. So he invites Howard Beale to the castle, to the boardroom table. And he's like, listen, motherfucker, whatever you're talking about is fine, but I want you to understand this is the reality here. This isn't about fucking democracy. There are no nations. There are no peoples. There is no America. There is no West. There are no ideologies. There is no democracy. You can howl about democracy as much as you want, but there is no democracy. There are only corporations. And the only thing that matters is the fucking bottom line. So you don't speak against what we fucking do. So he sends Howard Beale off into another direction. So Howard Beale now starts not so much ranting, but he just starts more or less kind of lecturing, commenting. But now, instead of giving the people something to rage about, he's giving them something that's a little bit more intellectual and a little bit less hopeful in terms of there's no big enemy to fight. It's kind of hopeless. You're just kind of fucked. It's just how the status quo is. So on the one hand, you have rage, fight. On the other hand, you have like, well, this is the system. And the people reject the change and the ratings start to dip again, and then they dip and they dip. So the people who developed his show want out of it. Even though the network wants him to stay on preaching this new gospel of fucking like corporate bullshit. So then they're like, okay, will combine these two shows by having the group that does the terrorist attacks assassinate Howard Beale live on fucking TV. And that way they get boost of ratings from Howard Beale. They get rid of Howard Beale, and then now this other shit takes its spot because now they've killed someone on TV. That's never been done before. Boom. So this is the story of Howard Beale, the only man who got killed for having lousy ratings.
Fun line.
It's a comedy.
Yeah. You see the jokes. In 2005, George Clooney, the great George Clooney, was preparing a table read, and he was going to do a live network reading of this show, or not a reading, but a stage production of this show. And he showed the film to a group of teenagers, some high school students and young college people, in order to get their reaction on how well it would go over.
Mm-hmm.
And he was dismayed because there was no laughter. There was no sense of fun. Nothing was being laughed at. The jokes weren't hitting. And it was afterward that he realized, after talking to the kids, that they didn't realize it was a satire because everything in it had come true. The whole idea of producing this as a television play was then scrapped. I think the obvious targets in Network, the Duvall character, Frank Hackett, the man who becomes the president of the network, Finch as Howard Beale, Holden as the producer, Schumacher and Faye Dunaway in that heartless role of Diana Christensen. Those are easy targets. Those are obvious targets. I think Chayefsky is playing with something a little bit different. Both Chayefsky and both Paddy Chayefsky, the writer, and Sidney Lumet, the director, are making a condemnation against an audience who is so willing to embrace and be led and be bullshitted into following a messiah, following something, because we're so lacking in our own, in either our own willingness or our own desire to think. I think as I was watching this movie, that was the thing that bothered me the most about Network as a film. Not to say that it's a problem in plotting or the narrative or the structure. It's a problem in how clearly it depicts the world that we live in, because you can look at that audience, put red hats on them, and there's not a whole lot of difference. But you could also put that on the people who were wearing pussy hats during fucking. They weren't wearing pussy hats, but you know what I was talking about. It's this
the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I mean, I hate the idea of people just blindly following something because they're too lazy to search for an answer themselves, or they're too stupid or ignorant to understand that there is a hopelessness to the quality of the leaders that we elect. There's a lot going on in this movie, and what is it, 50 years later, almost 50 years later, this movie has become more important and more telling and sadder and more depressing than it was ever intended to be. I don't know if Chayefsky and Lumet, or if anybody involved in the production acting-wise, realized how close we would get to a reality of a network. As I was watching it last night, I was really kind of blown away at how prescient it was, at how on point it predicted the future, a future that we are now living in. And I don't mean to be doom and gloom, and I don't mean to be, oh, woe is us and the hopelessness of it, but if this is, I guess my attitude is it's only getting worse. It's never going to get better. And how do we come through it? Because sadly, I think that the majority of people want this kind of thing. When you see people wearing, I'd rather be Russian than vote Democrat, that's a shirt that I've seen people wear. All you can do is marvel at the ignorance and the stupidity of a group of people who hold the Republican Party in such high acclaim, and think back to the party of Lincoln, the party of Reagan. These as Americans, I think our biggest problem is that we live in the glory of the past. And when you see something like Network, you realize this is something that's been with us for all of the the existence of the United States. And then you have to expand on that to see how much of this does this reflect on the behavior of human beings. We're tribal, we're reactionary, we want to be led. And I think ultimately that's the saddest and most depressing thing. This was not a fun watch, although I think it was an important watch. And I would recommend this to anybody who really needs to understand where we're, or at least to have a better idea of where we're at and why we're here. If you watch Network, a lot of those fucking questions get answered. A lot of them.
Well, what are those answers?
It's all bad for you. It's all bullshit and it's bad for you. That's the answer.
Yeah.
I mean, if you and even me saying that right there shows my level of the sheepish quality of wanting to follow somebody who makes sense of it.
George Carlin.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I look at these people who follow Howard Beale, but I also look at those people, and I've always had a profound hatred for Oprah Winfrey, not necessarily because of Oprah, but because of the way people elevated her to a godlike status. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. That's what they fucking did. They still talk about her in that manner. Oprah. She's a one name industry.
Yeah. And she created other industries. She created Oz and Dr. Phil, and you know,
she is a cancer that has metastasized into more cancer, just eating away at us and destroying everything that we are. And it comes out of that world of reality TV, because those network shows, those syndicated talk shows, were basically the early days of reality TV. The Sally Jesse Raphaels, Jenny Jones, Wally George, you mentioned Geraldo. At least with Morton Downey Jr. and Wally George, they didn't hide from the fact that they were scumbags. They embraced it. It's the
they
difference.
Got the audiences.
Yeah.
To Wally George was when we talk about Z Channel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to talk about UHF. I'm going to talk about fucking these channels that I used to watch that comparable.
Yeah.
And I used to watch the shit out of fucking Wally George. And Wally George was he's Rebecca De Mornay, another fucking reference that falls on deaf ears. Her dad.
Yeah.
And it was the channel, it was either 50 or 56, and it was KDOC. So it was for Orange County. I live in and grew up in Los Angeles County, so Orange County was considered behind the orange curtain. It's to the south, and it's fucking Republican, and it's very like, some parts are beachy, and it's like, it was white and it was different.
I don't know. Very white, very rich, very gated, very self-consumed. Yeah, if I remember correctly.
You know, the OC is fucking John Wayne Airport. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
the OC is the OC, and this is 80s, early 90s. So he would have all of these people, and a lot of times you can go back and look footage, and I have a whole fucking playlist on YouTube just devoted to fucking like his shit.
Of course you do. Why wouldn't you?
When I want to curl up in bed and fucking if Leslie's cooking or doing something on her own, and I want to have some me time, and I have my little hot chocolate in bed, fucking like all warm and fuzzy, I watch Wally George bring in these fucking people that they're fake guests.
Yeah.
And they're there to shock.
Yeah.
And he'll have people who are advocates of drugs or some kind of like what would have been seen at that point as either sexual deviance or countercultural cultural sexual thing, or even just simple as something, you know, some gay advocate or something, and or a Satanist or whatever. And Wally George would come in with it was like basically like a Johnny Carson. So he would be sitting behind a desk and he would talk to Johnny Carson was another fucking, he was a TV guy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And he would have guests and he would go off on them, Wally George would, and he would tell the audience, isn't he just a scumbag? This guy's a scumbag. And the audience would be like, ah. Of course, the audience would consider them scumbags too. And they're young and like they look like from the 80s. And then the show would build and they would go back and forth and argue. And then finally he would kick them out. He would kick his guests out. He'd say, you're out of here. Get out of here. And then he would promote conservative values and America and all this bullshit.
Yeah.
And then it would cut to commercial, and then you would get the sex hotlines because it was a nighttime show. And so you get the sex hotline commercial. So let me explain. There used to be regular phones, and there were these before the internet. There were people would either consume their porn through fucking like before the actual porn theaters, then VHS was the tape or cable. Or magazines, which were a thing.
Very important, yeah.
The hotlines where you would dial some fucking 800 number and you would talk to someone, and this was their job. You would talk to them on the phone and you would like have sex talk, and they would charge you. They would charge your fucking phone. So you would call this number, and by calling the number, you agree to these charges. You don't have to put in credit card or anything. And like I did it with my friends, like when we were fucking like 12 or 13.
Jesus Christ.
And the outcome was bad.
I imagine.
Yeah. Parents don't like that.
No, they don't.
The parents do not like that. Because it's like fucking like at that time, I don't know, it was probably like
$9.99 a minute, and then some shit like that.
Let's say it was less, but then it was like, let's say $3.99 for the first minute, and then $2.99 for each additional minute.
Yeah, minute goes fast.
And you're talking to some chick who could be anyone. And
well, I'll tell you,
you're just talking about sex.
I had a comic friend named Marilyn Martinez who did phone sex. I don't know if you've ever seen Marilyn, but she was about as wide as she was short. So she was about 5'1" and about 5'1" wide, and not an attractive woman. And she made her living when she wasn't doing stand-up as a phone sex operator. And she would tell me some of the stories, and she would tell me some of the people that would call, and the just the level of craziness that you encountered with that. Yeah, so yeah, you were not. These were not Playboy models sitting by the pool out by the grotto. These were not attractive women. So
So Wally George would have these fucking these commercials, and then he'd cut back, and then it would be more conservative values of the weird fucking exploitative fucking guests and shit like that. And on it went. And I used to watch that show fucking religiously.
What was it about it?
And
Was it just capturing you because it was so fucking out there? It was.
This is the thing that was different from watching what Jerry Springer became, or Maury Povich. Maury Povich used to be on A Current Affair, and I think I've talked about this. But I used to. It used to freak me out because it had this. It was like a triangle logo.
Was that A Current Affair? Or was that Inside Edition? I can't. It doesn't matter, but I get what you're saying. Yeah,
it was A Current Affair because it would go, and it fucking used to scare me. I don't know, and because I associated it with, I think, with some Charles Manson.
Yeah.
But
you got a lot of mileage out of Charlie, didn't you?
Still do. if you see, because I have those playlists still. I have all these nostalgia playlists that are all this fucked up shit. If you've listened to this show long enough, and you've listened to me on it long enough, you know that like if something like freaked me out as a kid, but I was also drawn to it.
Yeah.
And so that fucking was like creepy, but it was fucking cool. And Maury Povich, who was married to Connie Chung, who was another fucking newscaster, nightly newscaster. He had that show, then he went and did his own talk show, and they became these kind of like paternity shows. Jerry Springer and those types of things were about.
I remember that.
Basically, are you the father or not? And then you fight. The difference between Wally George and those was that it was more B-side. It was more, and it was late. It was like at, I don't know, they would show it like at 10 or 11. And I was like, fucking, like 12. And so I liked the dichotomy of, and I understood this, that he was talking about these fucking values, but then they would show the sex ads. Jerry Springer was boring. He seemed boring. And this captures some of what the whole point of why we're talking about this to begin with. Jerry Springer just seemed like a nice person. He was like Donahue.
Yeah.
Donahue was like a nice guy. He was another TV guy. Geraldo, there were these different ones. There, for the most part, they were all nice, except the crazy ones. The crazy ones, Morton Downey Jr. would fucking smoke, and his logo was like a big like mouth, like almost like the Rolling Stones fucking Kali mouth, and he would talk all this shit to people. He was a fucking asshole. And that's how Wally George was. And Wally George, either you agreed with those politics or not. And I didn't understand politics on this deep level as a fucking adolescent, but I understood that I didn't like what this guy represented because I knew he was a fucking asshole, and I knew what all that like America First shit meant. I could feel it,
Yeah.
And I could feel that he was racist, and I could feel that he was all this shit. And then he would have all these extreme fucking characters, and it was like a continuation of watching wrestling. I used to watch wrestling before when I was like younger, and it was characters, and these characters, you would love to hate them or you would love to love them. And then sometimes some of these characters that you love, they change. They become, something happens in their storyline, and then they take a heel turn. They become villains. And maybe it breaks your fucking heart. But then it's like, well, what's going to happen next? It's a fucking soap opera. My mom used to watch fucking Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
JR.
Most of our moms did. Yeah. What about JR?
He was the guy you would love to hate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who shot fucking JR? Like, that was the biggest thing. It's like, They shot JR and it fucking grazed his ear, and then he got up and pumped his fist, fight, and fucking then he won. You know, like that's all it is. So Geraldo Rivera was fucking. He was controversial too, but his was more like a variety of stuff, and he would fucking go and swing it. He fought. When we do American History X, I'm gonna talk about that.
Yeah.
But Wally George was weird. Wally George was like dirty. Howard Beale got dirty. Howard Beale seemed unscripted. That's what this shit is. That's what fucking Donald Trump is. So when motherfuckers are going through their pipelines, right now it's about like, what are all these fucking podcaster pipelines? From Crunchy to right wing, from fucking Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan right wing pipeline. If you're not familiar with this and you're interested in these topics, look them up. People go into these like algorithmic enclaves, right? These cul-de-sacs where you fucking just like these ghettos where you start listening to one thing, you go down that fucking rabbit hole, and next thing you know, you're in this fucking corner of the internet that it's like another fucking reference. There used to be this guy named Bruce Lee, martial artist, before the UFC. He had a movie called Enter the Dragon, and in that movie, Enter the Dragon, there's a room, and in that room, there are all these mirrors, and in all of that room with all the mirrors is Bruce Lee, and everything he sees in that room is himself, but it's all distorted because it's a room full of fucking mirrors. Anyway, so you're in this fucking algorithmic enclave cul-de-sac of the rabbit hole internet, and all you see are all these fucking mirrors of whatever the fuck you just clicked on. So if it's fucking Rogan, and then Rogan starts to make his heel turn, where he starts to become a villain, but you don't know it, or maybe he's a hero. Whatever fucking floats your boat, because there is no truth. There are only corporations. Next thing you know, you're listening to this, you're listening to that, and then it leads you to something else that's similar, and then it leads you to Jordan Peterson because he has him on there, or maybe it's Lex Friedman who just wants to have like these really like open conversations with everyone. But I'm gonna have mostly right wingers on my show, and I'm not gonna push back on anyone. I just want to like, I'm all about love because someone's funding me, but no one knows who. Next thing you know, you're fucking like, you'd rather be Russian.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, there's nothing wrong with being Russian, but it's like in that context, what it means is like Putin or bust. You know, I'd rather fucking vote for Vladimir Putin than fucking for Kamala Harris or fucking Joe Biden. Because have you seen Joe Biden's ratings? Joe Biden's ratings fucking suck. He had a poor debate performance, so we have to fucking stab him, you know, metaphorically within the fucking party. Kamala had her Brat Summer. Trump had the assassination attempt. Who went on Joe Rogan? That's a big thing. Did Joe Rogan fucking elect the president? That's been a thing too, because now they're doing an autopsy on the election, and all the fucking like left-leaning legacy outlets are fucking like pointing fingers just like the Democratic Party, and they're trying to figure it out. And fucking the right side, not the right as in the correct, but the right wing side, because there is no right or wrong, there is no correct, there are only corporations. There is no truth, there is no ideology. That side is like, we fucking got the better ratings, we got it. The sharks are like, yeah, we got it. That's what this shit is. This shit is all of that. I think Trump at one point went on Larry King years ago saying that he would fucking have Oprah as his fucking running mate. I used to watch Survivor. It's a fucking reality show. And it gets these, so I've talked about this before. I'll re-explain what it is. Survivor is at this point 20 some odd fucking years old as a show. You get all these people and you put them on an island. You put them in two teams, and you put them on an island. And the two teams have to compete against one another, and whoever loses each competition the team losing has to go that night to a tribal council and they have to vote out one of their own. You keep doing that until ultimately you get low numbers enough to where now the two tribes merge. And that usually means that one tribe is going to be smaller and it will be absorbed into another tribe. So are they going to fucking just pick off the new tribe or what's going to happen? Now they're merged, so now they have to figure it out. And ultimately, you get down to two people. But after so many people getting voted out, eventually the people who start getting voted out, they're going to go to the fucking the final tribal council group that's going to have to vote the last two people to be the winner. So you vote out people, but once you get down to, I don't know, like a certain number, let's say fucking within 12 or whatever, now whoever gets voted out has to come back as a jury member. And those people are now going to have to vote for one of the final two. And you have to give your final pitch, blah, blah. There are individual challenges, there are group challenges, whatever. In Survivor, the person who would win all of the challenges would never win. It was never that person. It was never the person who would win everything. The assumption would be, well, yeah, the guy who would win all the challenges, the girl who would win all the challenges, the woman, the kid, not the kid, but the young guy, the whatever. No, it's not that. And they would have all these different people. They would have controversy, drama, romance, blah, blah. Hot people, not hot people, whatever. That person would not win. It was usually someone who knew how to fly under the radar. It was not the most controversial person either. The controversial person would be there and they would last, but they would be like the villains, but they wouldn't. There were some villains who won, but it wasn't that. You had to walk a fine line and it had to be the best story because it's all fucking editing. They went from there was this concept of loyalty, of having these ties, of having alliances. People would make alliances early on in the game and they expected themselves, supposedly, and others to follow those alliances all the way to the end. Let's take each other to the end. Then we'll fight it out amongst ourselves, but let's take it to the end and let the best person win. At one point in the development of the series, you had people who the show had been old enough that now people who were fans of the show, who had grown up with the show, so to speak, were now able to be on the show. So these people studied it. So now the game was different. So these people said, hey, it's no longer about alliances. It's not alliances anymore. It's about voting blocks. It's about whatever is the most convenient or what makes the most sense for now. We'll vote that way. And then the next time we have to reevaluate. Nothing lasts. We're in that. We're in Survivor. Network is Survivor. Fuck Howard Beale. Howard Beale is cool as long as he's making money. He can go crazy. He can do whatever the fuck whatever, as long as he's making money. But once the numbers decline again, we have to reevaluate. There's no loyalty. There's no nothing. This is how Hollywood is. This is how fucking the news is. This is how politics is. This is how wrestling is. This is how porn is. This is how everything is. This is the substance. This is everything we've ever fucking talked about. This is our show. As long as we're fucking like, right now, someone could have already turned off because they're like,
long-winded and pretentious, yeah.
And fuck that person.
Yeah, fuck
they won't hear me. Fuck you to that person. They won't hear it because they already turned me off. But fuck you. But whatever. And now, if they were to have heard me say fuck you, they'd probably turn it back on.
Yeah,
because then they could argue with me in their mind. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's what it is. This leads into reality TV, like you said, with cops. It leads into all of that shit, all of these shows, all of this. Donald Trump is reality TV. He was presented as this amazing businessman with the fucking sons, with the daughter, with the boardroom, with the other celebrities that
with
he
the
was
trophy wives, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you're fired. And before that, we knew him from fucking Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, was a fucking other '80s show with Robin Leach,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Champagne Wishes and Caviar Dreams.
Caviar Dreams.
Yeah. It was a period of time when
This,
the brotherhood and the peace and love of the late '60s went away with this is all historical. This is all the breaking down and the loss of faith in both government and your leaders with Nixon, but even before that with Kennedy, taking one to the fucking head.
and TV made him.
And TV made him. Yeah, exactly. So it's symptomatic. It's just like everything. If you look at and this is the problem that people like you and I have, is that we're too aware of it. It would be a hell of a lot easier to live life not concerned with any of this shit. But I can't go through life looking at a situation and not wondering where's the money. You know how they say with The Wire, always follow the money trail, and you find out exactly. And that's basically what we have here, because at the core of everything in network, it's such a fucking cynical and capitalistic film. Well, cynical, but also capitalist bashing film, because if you look at it, everything that they're doing is a ratings point, which means so much money in advertising dollars and what you can bleed the public out of. So that if you could convince the public that this is worth watching, then we can keep them stuck to that TV set. And Chayefsky said something about turn off this idiot box, turn off this, go out there and live life. And I think that's the most disturbing thing, especially coming from somebody in both of us really, who were raised in front of the TV. I think either our generation or the generation right before us were the TV generation, where you came home from school, it was about 2:30, 3 o'clock, and you sat down in front of the television set and you watched cartoons. I watched reruns of Gilligan's Island, Bewitched, Leave It to Beaver, all that shit.
Yeah.
And it controlled your mind. It controlled your thought. It gave you an idea of what life was supposed to be. For the longest time, as ridiculous as it sounds and as ignorant, that's what I thought white people were like. Leave It to Beaver. That's what I thought. I thought the Brady Bunch. I thought all of that shit was white.
You didn't think it was cops?
No, I didn't think it was cops. No. The other end of, there was nothing on TV that represented Latinos, but the black experience was, regardless of what people want to say, the black experience was readily available on TV, but it was very stereotypical. It was very, it was hood. It was Sanford and Son. It was Good Times. It was struggling. Yeah. Up until Cosby, yeah. Before Cosby, it was the Jeffersons too, but yeah.
Yeah, you didn't get hoodies like, you didn't get fucking Cosby's Diddy parties yet, but that would come later.
We wouldn't know about that until
we wouldn't know about that
decades.
Till decades later.
Well, there were rumblings, but yeah, you are absolutely right. But this is the thing: it's that television has warped our perception of what life is. So, and it takes a long time to come to terms with the fact that you're lied to, but you're complicit in the lie because you want to believe the lie. You want to believe that this is
what lie do you tune into?
Yeah. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's this idea that I want my life to be that. I watched those shows because there was not a sense of nostalgia, but a sense of desire. That's what
And not to cut you off, but there's also a desire for nostalgia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why do I have those fucking playlists? Because I want to relive.
Yeah.
I want to go back to that. And even if I can go back to it and I understand it better because I have hindsight, and I'm just like, God, this is so. It's like Faces of Death. Like the first time if you're fucking 12 and you watch Faces of Death, maybe you think it's all real. By the time you're fucking like a little bit older, you're like, this is fake as fuck, like, but maybe you still watch it because you're like, I want to see the fucking the movie magic.
Well, you think about it in the same sense. That's wrestling. We were into
Exactly.
wrestling, so I mean, we were invested. We believed it. We thought it was, I'd have my dad sitting there going, "This is all bullshit. This is fake. You can't do that," and we didn't care. We loved it. We believed in it. We were Hulkamaniacs. We were,
Yeah.
we were eating our fucking vitamins and staying away from drugs. Oh yeah,
Yeah. Saying your prayers. Oh yeah.
exactly.
And then what happens when you're like, oh fuck this, I want ECW.
Yeah.
I don't want this, I want WCW. No, I want ECW. No, I want Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. No, I want this. I want to see I want to see. There used to be a guy whose name is Abdullah the Butcher.
I remember. We'll see that
And
motherfucker
it's like,
bleed.
you want to see blood.
Mm-hmm.
You want to see barbed wire.
Yeah.
You want to see broken glass. You want to see tables, ladders, chairs, all of that shit.
You want to see how close somebody can come to death.
That's it.
That's it. That's all you want to see.
That's all. Somebody can come. That's it. That's what it is. All those fucking pipelines. That's why it's kind of like, well, porn.
Yeah.
It ends up going further and further. You know what I mean? And look at fucking Jake the Snake in that documentary. It talks about like, next thing you know, you need a fucking midget and a pistol in order to get off.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
we do that to ourselves too. I mean, the level of depravity that you watch in pornography, do yourself a favor. Those of you out there, try jerking out without pornography. See how well that goes for you for the first few times. That's when you start to realize you have a problem. That's when you start to, and it's we're mocking it, we're laughing about it, but there is a reality to the dangers of too much of anything. What's that?
I like your public service announcement during the podcast too. Like, and for those of you who don't know, try it. Try jerking off without pornography. Let me know how that works out for you, because it doesn't.
Yeah, that's a.
Might as well just throw your dick in a frying pan and be like, "This is your dick. This is your dick on drugs."
Yeah.
Any questions?
Yeah.
If you remember that fucking.
Yeah, if you
now
remember.
This is just now an '80s nostalgic circle jerk of memory.
Which is hilarious because this is a film from the 70s. It's very critical of that time. So it's like this is 1976, shot in 75. It's going up against Taxi Driver. I don't know what other film, but it loses Best Picture to Rocky. Now that says something a lot.
There you go.
It's and I love Rocky, but to know that Rocky beat Network and Taxi Driver for best picture, that's a testament to how blind and ignorant the public is. They want something easy.
It's what's the season and what does the public want? You know what I mean? Like, does the public want Rocky? Even though it's a feel-good story, Rocky is closer to the Howard deal. Because Rocky's pissed, and Rocky wants to be somebody, and he wants to fight. And this might be a little too smart. This might be a little bit like you have to have the world is on fire, and you have to have a dragon. And now I sound like Jordan Peterson. You have to have a dragon, but you have to have someone who's going to fight the dragon. You have to be a monster so you can fight the dragon, but a good monster. Rocky fucking wants to he's doing violence. How many people wanted to fucking punch somebody?
Yeah.
Well, for a good cause, right? That's why it's like the cowboy thing. The cowboy thing fucking couldn't have even existed without those assholes writing the little fucking journals and little pamphlets that they would write about the OK Corral or about Wyatt Earp, about all that shit. That's the early version of that.
All that Beauchamp, the Duck of Death.
Beauchamp,
that's
exactly.
The shit, you create the mythology because it's important for people to have, or at least they believe it's important for them to have heroes, for them to look up to something in them. But it's also about taking your attention away from your own miserable life. The thing about Howard Beale is he's speaking a lot of truth, but really, what is it when the only thing that motivates him, because let's be honest about this, whatever a hero Howard Beale is depicted as, to some degree, I don't think he's really depicted as much. The fact of the matter is that his motivation is only when he becomes obsolete and no longer useful to the network, where they're going to cut his ass loose and send him out.
Incident is that he gets fired.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like in the Joseph Campbell fucking schematic, it's fucking, that's his call to action. And does he, like, how does he answer he's taken out of his ordinary world, so to speak, and now he's put into a different circumstance. And it's like, so what do I do now in response to this? And the response is like, I follow this journey.
Yeah.
And when we talk about, oh, it's bullshit and it's all bad for you, a la George Carlin, and we're talking about, and this is the dangerous and seductive part of it, because you're saying, like, how much happier would we be if you were just ignorant and just basically eating the steak in the Matrix, right?
Yeah.
You choose the steak, you choose the illusion, right? Then the opposite is you take the red pill, right? And that's been used, that concept of red pill been used in the fucking manosphere, which spins off into incel shit. It's also been used in accelerationism and neo-reactionary fucking bullshit, which goes into like technocratic fascism and all of that. Those are different versions of pills that you can take nowadays online, right? The problem is that once the first layer is kind of like you say, oh, this is all bullshit. But that's the first layer. The second layer is now you have someone who's telling you that it's all bullshit. So now you think it's all bullshit, and then someone's telling you it's all bullshit, or maybe you didn't think so, but they told you, and now you see it. You took the pill, and you see it, and you're like, okay, it's all bullshit, but now what? So then now, this person who's telling me that it's all bullshit, what else do they have to say? So then that person now can guide you to whatever they want to guide you, or whatever their sponsors want to guide you in whatever direction, or the producers want to guide you in, or the network wants to guide you in. And at this point, at that point, it's like, in the world of Howard Beale, it's like, we'll change the channel. And other channels were trying to do Howard Beale, and then they were trying to like compete with. Once Howard Beale started losing, they were like, well, let's create a different Howard Beale, but
let's find a new prophet.
Obviously, it doesn't work, because it's like, it's just like everyone trying to be the next Donald Trump. It's like Ron DeSantis. So everyone's trying to be Trump, but they can't, because there's only one Trump, because he's authentically his fucked up self. And so that's just, he's a once in a fucking, like, in terms of him, like, that's a once in a lifetime type of figure. Who completely realigned the Republican Party. And then it's like, well, the other channel, they're like, okay, well, what can we do to compete with that? We're going to have a masculine nice guy. We're going to have Kamala Harris. Well, did Kamala Harris go too far left? She went too far left. That was the problem. She was too woke. She was too progressive. No, she went too far right. She was a fucking prosecutor. No, she was too centrist. No, she was too this. No, she was too that. Either way, whatever pill you fucking take, you end up taking that fucking pill. And when Howard Beale says turn off the TV, I'm sure some people did turn it off. But then they're like, well, now what?
Yeah.
I have to turn it back on because I have to see what else he says.
And that's
so, I turned it off. But,
Huh? No, I was going to say that's the fundamental problem. Yeah, I'm going to turn it off. But who's going to lead me now? Because it never comes down to lead myself. It never comes down to me making a choice based on what I know and either reaping the rewards or suffering the consequences. I would rather have somebody do the thinking for me. And I think that's the most dangerous thing. And I think that's the most the the bigger story of the network and Schumacher and the Duvall character and Howard Beale and Diana Christensen and all these people vying for control and vying for power. Those are the obvious targets. I've said it before. The real telling is the real problem that network addresses is our failure to be our own leaders, to do something about our lives and take charge. And, it's just this desire to have somebody show us the way. And you're looking to a madman like Howard Beale, and I think Finch gives a great performance there, but even he is changed after that moment where Ned Beatty comes in, and that's one of the shortest performances in a movie that's nominated for an Oscar. I think he's on screen for like just under 6 minutes. And the way they shoot him at the end of that table with those green lamps, it's such an obvious cinematic
shoot him
thing.
light-wise.
Yeah. But all of those lamps moving towards him.
Yeah, those library lamps.
Yeah, and those library lamps are because I was sitting there watching, I was like, wow, those library lamps are so they're just, they stick in your head, because if you've seen, I've never seen those lamps in real life.
But I used to have one.
You had one of those? Well,
yeah,
if you went to the library, in movie libraries, those are the lamps that are in the libraries. You see them in Seven. I think you see them in older movies. It's like the New York cab. That New York cab doesn't exist any longer. The one from Taxi, that doesn't exist. It's the times that I've been in New York, it was Corollas, and now I think it's Priuses.
Like an Uber.
Yeah, it's Uber. See, well, there's that too. But like, that's the power of movies. So you have these lamps, and
the green shade.
The green shade with the gold stem.
Glass.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and it seems so obvious a way to shoot something and to direct the attention. I love that moment. Owen Roisman is the cinematographer on this. I don't know what else he shot, but he was Lumet's guy on this film, and Lumet. I think the combination of the way it's shot, Lumet and Paddy Chayefsky, they capture something that is very honest and truthful to the network. I mean, Lumet started in television, directing the craft news out, whatever craft. They would do. I think they did the Oxbow incident. I think they did some Tennessee Williams. Basically, they would shoot live television, and Lumet would direct, and Chayefsky would write some of these. So when Chayefsky was given the assignment to do this film, they were looking for a director, and Chayefsky was a big enough name that he could make suggestions, and he called in Lumet. So I think it's the perfect pair. I think it's one of the best films of the 1970s, and sadly, it's one of the least. It's one of the least lauded. People think Taxi Driver, they think of Apocalypse, The Godfather, Jaws, Star Wars. Network falls in the cracks, and I think it's equal to all of those films, if not better than some of them.
It's not blockbustery. That's why.
That's the thing. I think it's a little bit too close. It's not an adventure. It's not an adventure, and it's too ugly in its telling of who we are. It's a very critical film. It's a very cynical film. And I think as the years go by, it's a hard movie for a lot of people to watch, because it doesn't pull punches, and it's blatant, and it's not afraid of laying blame where blame is owed. I think it's a brilliant film all around.
Leslie was like What the fuck?
Well, Leslie's a little bit younger than us, I think, right? So she's
Yeah. Mhm.
as she is a little bit more optimistic, I think.
Yeah, I mean that's her personality.
Mm-hmm.
It's her outlook. It's her personality. It's her astrology. It's her fucking it's her generation.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so it was a point when in the film this Angela Davis esque
Mm-hmm.
fucking this like Black Power activist female goes to the safe house or whatever, the headquarters of this other like terrorist group, and she had already pitched this idea of the show to them, and now it's these terrorists with this woman as the liaison and these assholes from the network, and they're all going over the contracts and they're all going over their fucking percentages and their
Mm-hmm.
market shares, and they're all fucking like arguing um, over over what the cut is. And of course, um, it's like when people talk about currently when they're like, oh, the Chinese Communist Party and fucking like socialism and all this bullshit that they said. And it's kind of like, motherfucker, like capitalism is the only game in town. Like, look around you. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, look around the fucking world. It's the only fucking game in town. Um, Mark Fisher, the scholar who committed suicide, um, I say that because it's like he was dealing with depression, but it's also like um, the depression of the shit that he was focusing on. Also, like that's heavy enough. Um, he's like fucking people can. What did he say? He said something along. He wrote a book called Capitalist Realism, and I think it's in that one that he says it's easier to envision the end of the world than it is to envision the end of capitalism. Um, and in another essay or something, he talks about capitalism as a zombie. Like it's like crawling, it's like staggering along as a zombie. But anyone who's seen enough zombie films knows that it's harder to kill a fucking zombie than it is to kill a living thing. Um, and so why I say that is because here they are, and it's like this communist American Black Communist Party leader, or whatever she is, and then this other terrorist, whatever, and then they're arguing. They get into all these arguments, and then finally the leader um, of the terrorist group fires a gun into the ceiling, and everyone stops. And he's like, "Let's paraphrase him. He's basically like, let's get back to Claw's fucking seat." And then they jump back into the fucking contract.
Yeah.
Um, and Leslie's like, "This is fucking crazy," and she's just like, she's like, "This is fucked up." Like, I'm like, "This is what I'm gonna talk about," and buy a ticket, take the ride, baby.
Is it fucked up? Is it funny? Is it both? Is it
I
sad?
there were
I don't
parts where
know.
I was laughing. I did
Yeah,
laugh.
there were parts where I could see the joke and I could see where I wanted to laugh, but I was just like, oh my god, I'm so fucking disgusted with everything. I can't. And that doesn't happen too much because I usually have a pretty dark sense of humor that goes along, and I like to laugh at how fucked up things are. But this was a little bit too. This was a little bit too close to home. It was a little bit too real and honest, and um, I kind of thought, well, if this is what it was 50 years ago when they predicted it, and I'm not somebody who feels like the boat that you can turn it around. I'm not somebody who thinks that you can right the boat.
Yeah.
I think it can only get
Burn the
worse.
boats, Joe Rogan says, you know?
Yeah. My fear is how bad does it ultimately get, and how much suffering are we in store for? And I don't think that ends well.
There was an assassination. Let me remind everyone.
Mm-hmm.
There was an attempt. There was an attempted assassination of someone running for the president months ago. I need to remind people of that. I need to remind myself of that, because had that been fucking like years ago, that would have been fucking like, that's such a fucking like the JFK thing, which was obviously um even the JFK thing is obviously the JFK thing.
Yeah, sure.
The Reagan thing was even like something that was talked about for a longest time. Like, this shit is like, we forgot already.
Yeah.
This shit only that attempted assassination was only in the news for like a couple weeks, because I think then it was like they rolled out Kamala Harris, and then it was like, okay, that took over the news cycle. The news cycles are so fucking short.
Yeah.
That it's, what's gonna happen next is get like Gladiator 2 comes out this month, if it's not already out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe that's where we're going. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it's like more nostalgia. There was a show called American Gladiator. Do you remember that?
I remember that. Yeah.
Where it was like regular fucking asshole contestants would go on this show, and it was kind of like almost like a hunger. Like, if you think of like Hunger Games, or like there used to be a show called, there was a movie called The Running Man.
I remember that.
You go on this fucking show, and it's like an obstacle course type of thing. And you have to go through this gauntlet. You have to go through this obstacle course, and there are these characters that are the gladiators, that try to like knock you off the beam, or knock you off the fucking pole, or whatever it is you're climbing on or crossing or whatever. And sometimes you have to fight them with these like batons or whatever. They're like giant fucking Q-tips. And you have to like fight them on the balance beam, and try to make it through. It's like that, but fucking like people actually die. It's gonna get to the point of like, I don't think it is, but I wouldn't be surprised at this point.
I don't know.
I don't think it is, but I mean,
I don't know. I mean, I think there's a difference between thinking something's going to happen and hoping it doesn't happen. I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm just all I can really do is hope at this point, because everything gets worse. Everything it's just it's all bad for you. It's all bullshit. It's bad for you. It's coming down. There's nothing you can do about it. Just fucking do the best that you can to survive it. And I don't know, but then maybe it's not that bad, because there's a part of me that says there was a little bit of nostalgia in watching this, because they were talking about UBC, and then they brought up CBS, NBC, ABC, 3 networks, and I was like, oh yeah, 3 networks. That's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
The onset and the birth of cable news came after cable, when all of these channels, and you needed programming. And with 24-hour news, okay, there is probably news that could fill 24 hours. But somewhere along the lines, it became about the profit. Because you remember listening to this show, this movie where they're talking about the news loses money every year.
Mm-hmm.
Your budget is $38 million, and we lose $32 million on it every year. And then you remember, the news used to be independent of the network. It lost money, and it was intended to lose, or at least it wasn't held to the standards of a Norman Lear production, or a Chuck Lorre, whoever that fucking asshole is now. It wasn't dependent on advertising dollars. And somewhere along the line, I don't know when, probably with the emergence of CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, and all of that shit, where it became the news for profit. And the news for profit means scaring the shit out of people.
I mean, the news has always been it's always been, let's invite that lady to dinner so she can tell us what's happening in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
That's fucking news for profit too. You know what I mean? Like, in a different way. But it's kind of like, yeah, okay, now we have a proliferation of fucking channels, but we still have fucking like 5 or 6 fucking media companies.
Yeah.
It's like Viacom, Sony, Comcast, Disney, News Corp, and I forget what's the other one.
Yeah, the point is, it's spread out, and every minute needs to be filled.
Yeah.
So in order to do that, there's a lot of fabrication. There is a lot of lowest common denominator shit. There's race baiting. There's instilling women with physical violence and fear. There's the idea that fucking immigrants are eating dogs and fucking cats. All of this ridiculous shit that is
virality. It's memed. It's always something gets memed. It's the accelerationists call it hyperstition. You meme something into existence. The Ryan Holiday, the guy before he became the fucking, what they criticize, either it's, you think of him as stoicism, or the critique is broicism. He was a media manipulator. He has a book called Trust Me, I'm Lying. And he would talk about how you seed stories into, you go to blog, you seed them, you do blogs, you send emails, there's a pattern. Then, because so many people, like, they get their headlines from other fucking headlines, and then eventually, like, it works its way into, because like you said, there always needs to be something on some blog or some, like, the news shows, they have their fucking social media, they have their blogs, they have their websites, plus whatever they're doing. Then maybe they have like podcasts, all this other shit. Everything needs to be filled. So they're waiting for something to fill. And that it's a constant thing. It's a constant churning. You always have to have something new. And so you can fill stuff in. You can fucking, when they started doing those videos of, oh, we're going to put in, and these are right wingers that were like, we're going to put in that Hillary Clinton is having a stroke, and they fuck with a video of her like nodding her head, laughing or whatever, and it looks all weird. Then they start memeing it. They start fucking Hillary Clinton having a stroke, Hillary Clinton having a stroke, Hillary Clinton having a stroke, and then ultimately it works its way up where the news people are like, Hillary Clinton is not having a stroke in this video, or they're saying, wait, Hillary Clinton, is Hillary Clinton having a stroke? Or do you remember for a while, this was a few years back, where everyone was talking about, this thing went viral. It was a video of news. It was like all these newscasters from different channels across the country reading off of the same script. You remember that?
No, this is new to me.
Okay, well, there was a video. You can look for it. And they're all reading the same fucking script. Like, they're all saying the same thing slightly differently, and it's like all these different channels. And I'm pretty sure Rogan talked about this too. And there's like, fuck, like the media and fucking like, it's so fucked up. And it's, which, you're like, yeah, of course. Sometimes there's a little bit of this idea of like, oh, the mainstream media, it's typically like, it's okay, more the mainstream media is like left wing, okay, because somehow Fox News is not mainstream media, you know, and of course, you know, obviously, somehow, right?
Yeah.
But then it turns out, I think that was something to do with, was it Cambridge Analytica? No, it wasn't Cambridge Analytica. I think that was some other scandal. Uh, it was some right wing fucking company that was behind that, and you had a lot of like or a lot of like non-legacy media people talking about how it was a sign of like legacy media and managed mainstream media, but a lot of the real critique ends up going towards like left-wing mainstream media. But it's actually coming from the right wing. And so this is another one of those areas where you really have nowhere to go. I mean, you have to really look hard, because it's kind of like, if you don't trust the managed media, right? Then that means you're going towards these independent, like, let's say like people are going to podcasters. Podcasters are the new fucking reporters, or the new commentators, or the new whatever. And it's opened it up. It's made it more democratic. It's really opened it up to where people can get their stuff from alternative sources. But then you go on a podcast and shit, this person has no fucking standards of I mean, and like the so-called mainstream media, like, there's no vetting of information, because they're getting their shit from some other asshole. And it's also like, how did this person become famous so quickly? How did this person get access to fucking and I'm not going into conspiracy, I'm just saying, like, it's called astroturfing. How do certain podcasters, and I'm not speaking as a fucking embittered fucking nobody knows him fucking podcaster. That's a different conversation.
We are those, yeah, but
yeah,
that's beside the point. Wow, nobody listens to us.
It's all bullshit. Don't listen to that.
If you bitch in the woods and nobody is there, are you really bitching?
I know. If a mic drops in the woods. No, it's how there are podcasters out there that it's like, who the fuck? Like, how did they become? Sure. How did they get access to all these people so quickly?
Yeah.
And obviously, it's like there's a circle jerk effect, where, you know, shit begets shit, right? Some people, it's kind of like, yeah, like, obviously, like, people have their sponsors. There are groups that are fucking like, they're fucking Ben Shapiro and all those motherfuckers, like, they fund each other. They all and then the whole, remember a few years ago, it was the fucking intellectual dark web. That's a loose network of people that were grouped together under this fucking like banner, and they're all very different, and they and most of them were already famous for other shit, but then they got into kind of like certain ideas. You know, Jordan Peterson already was like a psychologist and a professor, and then he got into his fucking the free speech thing, which is like, okay, that makes sense. Okay, I get it. Like, are you gonna, okay, compelled speech, blah blah. But then you start straw manning, and then you start. Now we have to save Western civilization from the fucking neo-Marxist postmodern blah blah, mixed with fucking Sam Harris, who's doing his fucking neuroscience bullshit. I hate Muslims, be afraid, 9/11, be afraid, and then this, and then, you know, all these people start getting mixed in, then they start going, they each get shows now, and then now they're doing podcasts, and then they're going on each other's podcasts, and it's just a thing. So it's like, okay, you don't trust mainstream media, I get it. But then you go into this shit, and then now fucking RFK Jr. is like fucking, I'm gonna kill a fucking bear. I'm gonna fucking take a whale's head on my car, and now I have a fucking seat in the cabinet. And I want you to trust my fucking views of healthcare. Or because fucking Rogan says, take this. If you're 18, you're good. You know, regardless of what you fucking, how anyone thought that the pandemic was fucking covered or reacted to or whatever, it's kind of like Bill Burr himself told him, like, I'm not gonna fucking listen to you. You're not a fucking doctor. I'm not a doctor. I'm not gonna sit here and talk to you about fucking that shit. Like, we don't know what the fuck we're talking about. As if Bill Burr should be listened to either. You know what I mean? I'm just saying he made a point, which is a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like, no, like, you're a comic, motherfucker. Like, you don't know.
I think at the end of the day, whether it's Bill Burr, Joe Rogan, George Carlin, Paul Mooney, if you admire these people, yeah, listen to what they have to say, but still formulate your own ideas. Allow shit to influence you to the degree that it makes you question shit. You and I did a podcast many years ago on Oliver Stone. And I think we both said that JFK as a film is brilliant in its execution, the production value, the acting, a lot of it, the direction, it's great. But to think that that is the truth, that's a foolish way to go about it. The point is not to accept Oliver Stone's version of the Kennedy assassination as the truth. The point is to ask questions where things don't seem to be right. He's fashioning a story. And I think with all these other guys, you can listen to what Joe Rogan has to say. But if you're taking what Joe Rogan has to say as the word of God, then you're the fucking problem.
He told you that himself.
Yeah.
On his last fucking crash and burn fucking special.
I didn't see it, so I don't know, yeah.
I'm just a dumbass, guys. I didn't see it either. I saw fucking enough clips of it. I saw it in clips, basically. And I've seen, like, critiques of it, clips of it, fucking portions of it. So, yes, I am also guilty of that, you know? Because I am using shit from my own context. So listen to me, guys. But it's
we know what we're talking about, so it's different. It's completely different.
I mean, it's whatever. Hide your kids, hide your wife. You know. Who do you fucking trust? And this motherfucker, how many times has he fucking listened to shit, repeated shit, and then it's proven wrong, and he's like, oh shit, fuck, that's crazy. It's crazy how, like, shit's just wrong. But you know, all I do is just talk shit, you know? It's kind of like, well, one of the critiques that I've heard about him that is kind of like on the nose is that his mind is so open that his brain fell out.
It's a good point. That's a real good point.
And you see a lot of comments on a lot of these things where it's like everyone's just really like about, oh, it's so fucking good though that, like, people can have these conversations from different, like, sides, and they can have conversations and they're just open to ideas, you know what I mean? And it's just kind of like, yeah. And it's like, yeah, okay. That's fucking that's how fucking polarized everything has become, that it's like, that's being praised. Like, that's not, call me idealistic, but, like, big fucking deal that you can talk to someone else who doesn't necessarily agree with you.
Yeah. That's never been a superpower until now. You know what I mean? It's just, don't go patting yourself on your back for, yeah.
It is hard, but when you both stand to gain from it.
Yeah.
And all the while you're being canceled, but you both stand to fucking gain from it. Because canceled becomes a fucking business strategy.
Well,
Howard Beale almost got canceled. You know what I mean? But then it's like Barbara Streisand. She used to be a singer.
mm-hmm.
She was a celebrity. She was a woman. She was a person who lived. Google her. She was doing her last concert, her last tours for fucking like how many times? It's one of those.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I don't think a movie can solve the problems. I'm not that naive. I'm not that ridiculous. But I think if you look at art, whether it be literature or music or comedy or film, if it forces you to think about something and you're open-minded and you're intelligent enough to know that there's a difference of opinion and things aren't always exactly what you're told. If you sit there and you start asking questions, you might not get them answered. You might not get them answered to your satisfaction. But you will get to a better place in your understanding of why things are. And I think network pushes that idea. I think it really I think Lumet, Paddy Chayefsky, Holden, Ned Beatty, Faye Dunaway, Peter Finch, and Duvall. I don't think you can make a film like this without having at least an open mind and an understanding of how the system works, but also being invested in caring about what it all means. This film, it's one of the best films, definitely one of the best films in the 1970s. Probably one of the best films ever made. It's I think everybody should watch it. I think you should watch it as there is kind of a wake up call aspect to it. Not to be so blunt as to cribbing off of the Howard Beale character, but there is I am mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore, and wake up and pay attention. And it's a dangerous film, but I think it's an important kind of danger. I'm glad we got a chance to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, like the my takeaway is, and this is like, in this sense, I would say an endorsement of, and like this is me being super fucking liberal, is like fucking an endorsement for higher education, is like, for education in general, is because hopefully, and this doesn't happen always, but hopefully, um, if you're on the trajectory to have an academic experience, is to be be in an environment, um, not where supposedly you're going to learn to be a socialist, but where you are allowed to learn to think critically. And if you're not in an academic environment, to figure out how to do that however you can, to learn to think critically,
Yeah.
to question assumptions, to see how it is that you're digesting ideas, new information that's coming to you, that you learn to fucking see this is my position, just because this is where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
What is the opposite position? And what if I had to come up with arguments as to why the opposite position would be true? What would those arguments be? Learn to think outside of your own fucking like shit.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean accept it, but you have to balance fucking information that you're getting. This is what we all have to do, and learn to do an analysis of information that we receive, whether we're receiving it through podcasts, whatever. Why am I seeing this? And that's the danger of the red pill thing too, is because like people think that then they're like, oh, I have the answer now. I know. It's because 9/11 was an inside job, or I know because of Pizzagate, or I know because the deep state is actually running shit, or I know because the other extreme is to say that fucking Donald Trump is Hitler, and then now everyone's backlashing that no, Donald Trump isn't Hitler. Obviously, Donald Trump is not Hitler. Donald Trump is Donald Trump. Those are two different fucking villains from two different fucking comics, like,
Yeah.
and I'm not fucking, I'm not diminishing, obviously, the effects of Hitler on the fucking 20th century and beyond. Well, I'm pointing out that it's like, this does come down to like heroes and villains.
Yeah.
Um,
It's definitely the story that's being told. So yeah.
And
yeah.
It's kind of like, it goes beyond like, oh, it's being able to see things on both sides without fucking making a false equivalence of like, oh, there are good people on both sides.
Yeah.
Like, go beyond thinking of good and bad, but think of like, fact check. Do that. Fact check yourself. Don't believe everything you fucking think. Don't listen to everything that you're being told as like you said, as the gospel. A lot of times there are kernels of truth in everything. Follow the sourcing. Follow like, do your fucking like, what's the historiography of this shit? Like, where does this shit come from? Like, okay, this video that I saw that makes sense to me. What's the overall position of the people who are sending me this message? Because then it might make more sense. What do some of the? I mean, it's fucked up because it's like you have to be vigilant. Who stands to gain from what I'm being told?
Yeah.
So you have to have a level of suspicion, like, for everything, or at least a healthy dose of skepticism. So, watch network, don't watch network, do whatever the fuck you want. I'm not going to tell you what to do, except send us money.
Absolutely.
We don't have sexy voices. We cannot have phone sex with you guys and gals out there, or whatever. We can't and we won't. Can't stop, won't stop. Get money, fuck bitches, hide your kids, hide your wife, fight, fight, fight. Go to your window, stick your head out, scream, I'm mad as hell. I can't take this anymore. Find me at thecoffee.com/WatchRickRamos. You know the deal.
Thank you very much. We'll talk again.